Hello everyone. Today we'll study basic English grammar, the past perfect tense. Yesterday Ahmed was tired because he had walked to the work. He had walked to the work. This is a past perfect. In this example, there are two actions or two events from the past. The two actions happen in this order. The first action, Ahmed walks, and the second action, Ahmed is tired. And I use a past perfect to describe the first action or the first event. He had walked. In this English grammar lesson, you will learn the form of the past perfect tense, the use and the meaning of the past perfect. There are other uses. First, we will talk about the form in affirmative form, full form, and a contracted form. At the first, the full form, subject plus had plus the past participle. And the contracted form, I change the word had with apostrophe D, so it will be subject plus apostrophe D plus the past participle. Here, these are the full form and these are the contracted form. I had walked, you had walked, he had walked, she had walked, it had walked, we had walked, you had walked, they had walked. And here in a contracted form, we change the word had with apostrophe D. I had walked, you had walked, he had walked, she had walked, it had walked, we had walked, you had walked, they had walked. Let's move to a negative form. He was happy because he hadn't walked to work. Look here, in a negative, I add the word not after the auxiliary verb had. So in a negative full form, subject plus had plus the word not plus the past participle. For example, I had not walked, you had not walked, he had not walked, she had not walked, it had not walked, we had not walked, you had not walked, and they had not walked. And in a contracted forms, there are two choices, subject plus had plus n apostrophe t plus the past participle, or subject plus apostrophe D plus the word not plus the past participle, but the first is better than the second. This is the first form and this is the second form. I hadn't walked, you hadn't walked, he hadn't walked, she hadn't walked, it hadn't walked, we hadn't walked, you hadn't walked, they hadn't walked. In the second form, I put apostrophe D and the word not. Both forms are correct, but the first form is better than the second one. Let's move to the question form of the past perfect tense. Had she walked to the airport? In a question form, I start the sentence with the auxiliary verb had plus subject plus the past participle. Had she walked to the airport? For examples, had I walked, had you walked, had he walked, had she walked, had it walked, had we walked, Had you walked? Had they walked? And here another kind of question. It's a WH question. In this form, I start the sentence with the WH question word plus had plus the subject plus the past participle of the verb. For example, how had he lost weight? Another example, where, this is a WH question word, where had she been? And this is the auxiliary verb had, subject plus the past participle of the verb. Another example, what had he eaten? What had he eaten? So I have two kind of question. Yes, no question. I start the sentence with had plus subject plus the past participle. And the second kind of question, a WH question word. I start the sentence with WH question word plus the auxiliary verb had plus subject plus the past participle form of the verb. We can use several question words to form a question with the past perfect tense. For examples, what, where, why, who, how, plus had, plus subject, plus the past participle, and don't forget to put a question mark at the end of the sentence. The past participles. What is the past participle and how do we form the past participle? In irregular verbs, the basic rule for regular verbs is to add the letter ed to the basic form. For example, clean, cleaned, walk, walked. And the past participle form for irregular verbs, these some irregular verbs, verb to be, in the past participle, been, break, broken, buy, bought, choose, chosen, come, come, do, done, drink, drunk, eat, eaten, go, gone, or been also, have, had, make, made, run, run, say, said, see, seen, think, thought. There is no rules for the irregular verbs. You must simply learn them. Now let's move to the uses and the meaning of the past perfect. Actions in the past before other actions. So we use the past perfect to describe an action in the past before another actions in the past. So this is the first use to describe the first action. I have two actions in the past. The first action will be in the past perfect. For example, she passed the exam because she had studied hard. This is a past perfect. So in the past, first she studied and then she passed the exam. So we use the past perfect. She had studied. Another example, when she arrived at the station, the train had already left. The train had already left. This is a regular form of the past perfect, and the word already is adverb. You must learn that the position of the adverb is in between had and the past participle or the main verb. So in the past, first the train left, then she arrived at the station. So we use the past perfect. The train had already left. So I use the past perfect to describe the first action in the past. the past perfect. In conditionals, we use the past perfect to describe an unreal or imaginary situation in the past. This is known as the third conditional. For example, if he had walked to the work, he would have been late. Here, I use the past perfect to the third conditional. Another example, if you had invited me to the party, I would have come. If I had had more money, I would have bought you a watch. Here, had, this is auxiliary verb, and this is the main verb, the past participle of verb have. So look here at the last example again. The first had is auxiliary verb, and the second had is the main verb. It's in the past participle of the verb have. Thank you with my best wishes.